Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Femboy Drawing. I believe this is episode 4, and in this episode I wanted to talk about color theory. So this is a topic that I think a lot of beginner artists are very scared of because of the word theory being in it. It sounds very overly formal and kind of scientific, but really it's not that complicated, and it's super useful when picking color schemes for a piece. So yeah, I'd love to share what I know about it with you so that hopefully you can improve your color choices in your drawings in the future. Okay, so let's begin with the primary colors. There's actually a massive misconception that the primary colors are red, green, and blue. That is true in the case of screens and the way that they manage color because of red, green, and blue segments in pixels. But when it comes to actual color theory, the three primary colors are yellow, blue, and red. Right? So these are the three colors that we're going to be using to make all other colors in the color wheel. Right? So let's take a look at what the secondary colors are now. So the secondary colors are green, purple, and orange. Again, not the ones that people usually think about being the secondary colors, but those are the ones. And then there's one final section in the color wheel known as the tertiary colors, which are the ones in between. Technically, there are infinite hues that you can get by microscopically mixing, but overall, these ones plus the tertiary are considered to be the standard colors by color theory. Okay, so it's a little hard to see, but here are all the colors that are considered to be in the color wheel. Some of them are kind of bad, like you can't really tell the difference. That's because my markers are kind of garbage, so I apologize for that. But now we're going to talk about the relationships that there are between these colors in color schemes. So there are generally two ways that you can pick color schemes, two major ways at least. These are the most common and easy way would be to pick adjacent colors. So typically a good color scheme would be to say I'm gonna have a warm color scheme that's gonna go from yellow to this dark red, and this will be your color scheme. So this is called an adjacent color scheme. You're picking things that are chromatically adjacent to each other on the color wheel. And the second most popular way that it's done is called complementaries. So for example, orange and blue are complementary colors, right? You could also be using something called triads. So for example, this would be a pretty popular triad, but that's a more complicated technique and is a bit harder to pull through. A very good example of this very same relationship would be in Portal. The two portals are blue and orange, and that's a very conscious decision by the game makers. It's because they're complementary colors, and so they work really well in unison because of the contrast that there is between them. So there you go, that's a bit of trivia for you. Hi, so I'm now on my computer because I wanted to show you a few more interesting things that I can't really show in real life with traditional materials. So I'm gonna have to use some painting software to do it. So I have with me Paint Tool Sci, once more, pretty easy to use. And I'm gonna talk about this really interesting thing that happens with color brown. Now, we're all familiar with brown, right? The thing is that brown is actually not a color, technically speaking. If we pull up the color wheel, I have a very nice version of it. If we pull up the color wheel, we can instantly see that brown is actually nowhere to be found. Instead, what is brown is every color from this range desaturated and darkened. So if I pick these colors with the color picker and I desaturate them, you'll notice that this one is not quite brown yet, but it's gonna start looking a little bit brownish. It's kind of like a khaki looking brown. And then the most classic one is just dark orange. Desaturate that, you'll see we get full-on brown. And then for darker browns, like for example like wood bark and stuff like that, this more reddish orange will do. So there you go, that's how you get browns. They're not actual colors, they're just tonalities of these redder, more orangish colors in the color wheel. And what's interesting is that this doesn't really happen for any other color, right? If I were to pick blue here and go on the same area, you'll just say, oh, that's just a darker blue, right? That's like a really dark cobalt blue. It's really interesting to me, and I'm sure it will be for you too, that brown is considered often its own individual color, even though it's technically not. It's quite strange how that doesn't happen with any other color in the color wheel, just with these three tones. And also, brown is a very naturally occurring color, right? You have it in wood, you have brown eyes, brown hair, a lot of fur in animals is brown, dirt is brown, so many things are brown, right? Even our skin tone could be considered a very, very light desaturated shade of brown, right? If I take this more reddish brown and I bring it over here, right? I really lighten the color. What are we gonna get? Skin tone. Look at that. It's skin tone. Okay, so now on to some more different kinds of color schemes and color combinations. The triad that I mentioned before, picking three colors that are kind of complementary-ish on the color wheel, so that would be a triad, right? Then you also have this thing called tetradic. So tetradic color scheme basically says that you pick two groups of adjacents, right? So two analogous relationships, and then you mix them together. So this is getting a little messy, so I'm going to erase the previous ones. But this would be generally the color scheme would be getting any kind of combination between all of those tones. And this one is pretty common in landscaping and stuff like that, where you're going to have a lot of different colors. You generally want colors that are closer to each other, and then colors that are also contrasting chromatically with each other. And then finally you have split complementaries. So split complementaries would be basically saying I'm going to pick these two complementaries, and then I'm going to add another complementary or another adjacent one next to that complementary. Okay, so then for the final segment of the video, I wanted to analyze the color harmony and color theory used in this incredible piece by Andreas Rocha called Oriental Dream. So you're going to notice that the general idea is complementaries, more specifically tetradic harmony that we talked about before, where we pick a bunch of colors that are adjacent to each other and then find the complementaries of those colors and contrast them together. So the two complementaries that we have here are this purplish color, which complements with this orange color down here on the ground. If I put them next to each other, you're going to see how they clash together, but that creates this insane contrast. So let's take a look at exactly what's going on. If I just take away this layer, what's going on is the following. You have these two complementaries, right? And then Andreas Rocha is using these colors, barely any red, but these colors to their advantage. So this is tetradic. As we mentioned before, tetradic is something like this. In this case, they're kind of doing a halfways tetradic type thing, where they're using these combinations that you get in this section of the color wheel. So If we come back here, we can see some really nice pinkish colors here. Very warm looking pink to create that light. We have a bunch of different tones of orange. We have even a bit of red, actually. I mentioned that there was almost no red, but there's some dark red for you. Obviously, it's a fairly dark piece, but where there are colors, you can see here's the biggest contrast in the piece. You can see the complementaries clashing together perfectly there. And yeah, so you can see how these two different completely opposite colors just clash together and create some insane contrast. It looks like a very dimly lit situation, but that gives the piece a lot of atmosphere and power. So I would say the conclusion of today's episode was, don't just pick random colors, be smart about your color choices in your pieces, because it can really affect what the final result will be. Anyways, guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Hopefully it wasn't as boring as I think it might have been, because color theory. As for the drawing your comments video, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with it, because a lot of people commented, and I don't know if I can handle that many things. I'll try to make it up for you guys, though. So I might do some kind of event, some fun event on my Discord server. So I'm going to link that down in the description if you want to join my Discord server. Okay, anyways, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye-bye.